Okay, everybody, so welcome to the San Francisco Drupal User Group Meetup on Thursday, May 14th. We're all here working from home and living the dream or something like that. So first off, this is just a few expectations. This meeting is being recorded. Participants asked to be muted during the main presentation. If you're unmuted, just being mindful of your background noise. And virtual backgrounds are totally cool, but please no moving backgrounds, and be nice and be respectful. We do have a code of conduct, and if you're curious about what that is, you can check it out. It is on the Bad Camp website. It's actually a 2019. But if you have any questions or do you want to get support or report any incident in any way, shape, or form, email info@badcamp.net. And I'm doing a thing tonight, so that's very exciting. So we'll talk about how to make your website last. But in other news, just quickly on some Drupal news. Oh my goodness, what happened? Bad Camp is virtual. So much like every other event under the sun, now that we've got the information that we cannot actually have events, so we do have a post up that October 14th through 17th is our first ever virtual Bad Camp. So we don't have registration or anything open. You're welcome to sign up to the mailing list or follow us on Twitter or find us in Slack. Oh, why is this doing this? There we go. Drupal thanks. Made it happen. So the Drupal Association was about $500,000 short, and through the Drupal Cares initiative, that was exceeded. It started off with a match from Dries and his wife Vanessa. Then a coalition of businesses came together and made that match again, so that the potential impact of $300,000, which along with various initiatives, including the Pixels for Drupal and Gabar's work with the Drupal 9 Module Challenge. You can check all of this stuff out here. And so it's very exciting. The campaign still runs till the end of the month, but that's exciting for them and for our community at large. Also accelerating Drupal 9 module and theme readiness with automated patches. So these links will all be available as well. Is there any comments from anybody on this one? I don't know too much about this, so.
It's awesome.
It's awesome, okay. We like awesome. Fantastic. And the release window for core release candidates extended to next week, but the 9.0.0 release is still scheduled for June 3rd. So more information up here. Okay, fantastic. We do have some Drupal events coming up. So Drupal Camp Asheville is coming up next on July 10th through 12th. DrupalCon Global, there's a bunch of different ways to get involved there. It's in July. Drupal Camp Colorado is going to be August 14th through 16th. Atlanta in September, and Bad Camp in October. So lots of ways to go to camps that you never got to go to ever before. So we would love to hear your experiences as an attendee for virtual events as we start to craft Bad Camp. So do stay in touch if you do attend some of these. Oh, what was that one? Oh, there we go. Okay, so then there's also the Drupal Community Working Group presents a well-being hour. So this is going to be Friday at 8 in the morning for us West Coasters. And Dr. Michelle Drapin is going to join and talk about how we can cope and get through this time together. So that's interesting. Drupal jobs, if you are hiring, please put a little note in the channel there. And if you're looking for a job, put a little note in the channel. Feel free to network in Slack as well. I know that at Kanopi, we are hiring a Drupal technical lead and a project manager. Is anybody else on the call hiring or looking for work? Coming up, so what's going to be happening is that lots of stuff. So Alligator Mike, aka Mike Herschel, is going to be doing a Drupal, choose your own Drupal adventure. So it's going to be an update on the new Drupal front-end theme, Oliviero, web performance in 2020, and so forth, plus stories of his childhood. So I'm imagining it'll be quite entertaining. Just so you folks know, we do have a 2-hour come as you will, come as you are happy time. Don't have to have any alcohol. We call it happy time. You can also have drinks, that's fine too. But it's a 2-hour session every other week. So that's one of these that's on May 28th. It'll all be on the meetup site. Then at our next official San Francisco Drupal user group in June, we're having Mauricio come and talk about Drupal 8 and 9 migrations by examples. This one will be very technical. And then we have, so we have a double header. This is again our happy hour in the middle of June, which is talking with Jeff. He might be on the call. Woo, that must be you, Jeff, that's doing this. Okay, wonderful. So he's gonna talk about Lando and Drupal Contrib. And then Gabe is going to talk to us about get the difference between, you know, an LLC, corporation, sole prop, or partnership, kind of figuring out as now if you're becoming more of an independent contractor, some options for you. Then I think we also see Elisa here. So here we go. We're going to get customizing contests with the voting API. And as you can see, it says a deep dive technical talk. So I know this one's going to be technical as well. Okay, call for speakers. So know that we have content, but we'd love to hear from you. So we come feel free to share knowledge. Contact Amy June at Kanopi.com. She can help you get that set up. And the one and only Bay Area Drupal Camp, well, we are totally virtual. It's still going to take a small army to make this thing happen. And we've got different volunteer options and availabilities. So contact Valerie at Rooted. It's Jason's partner. She's a lovely person and she can help get you involved. And thank you, Kanopi. So I'm the one who's actually sponsoring for the Zoom room. No big deal. We already got an enterprise account, so happy to extend it to the community. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is our presentation tonight. So I know as the founder and CEO of Kanopi Studios that when I've been working with clients to manage through this strange time, a lot of the projects that we had that are Drupal 8 that were in motion are still in motion. People that were on the very fence and didn't know what to do with their money, some of them have pivoted and stayed in Drupal 7. And so I wanted to let you know that everything's gonna be okay, first off, that if you're freaked out about Drupal 7 becoming end of life soon, there are options, there are long-term support providers. So I know that today I wanna talk about what are the functional things you can do to your website, whether it's in 7, whether it's in 8, or anything else, so that you can make it last as long as possible. So this is me. This is my QR code. If you want to take a picture of it, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Please just tell me where we met because I get a lot of spam. So just be like, I saw you at SF Doug and I'll accept your request, no problem. But yeah, so Kanopi, we're here to take care of the whole life cycle of the website. And just a little bit more on that is that at Kanopi, we really love to make websites easy to understand and effective. So we take care of the whole life cycle of the website. And how we do this is we make it happen through our values. And I'm sharing these today because it drives a lot of how I believe that you can take care of your website. So first off, our values shine through our nimble can-do attitude, our trust in each other, and the clarity with which we communicate, and the way each of us works to own it as we have a culture of accountability. From our community work to our client work to supporting each other, we prove that we are better together. And that leads us to our final value, which is gratitude. We're grateful we get to work with great people, great clients, and create impactful futures for all. So I'd love to help you. You're welcome. I'll post this as well. If you do want to meet with me, I'm always happy to provide some additional support. And if I don't know the answer, I will find someone who can. So, okay. So how many people have heard of Kaizen before? Just kind of show of hands if you're still on video. Yeah? So this means essentially continuous improvement, or it's the Sino-Japanese word for essentially continuous improvement. And it means that everybody from the CEO to the assembly line workers, improve all aspects of the business. And this is the way that I run my business. And it's actually the way that I find when you're looking at taking care of your website, it's something that needs continuous improvement. So speaking of continuous improvement, the other philosopher, I think he's a philosopher, I think he's rad. His name is Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek wrote a book recently called The Infinite Game. And this guy, oh my goodness, he's got some really powerful stuff. But when it comes to thinking about a website, I love it in contrast to the understanding this infinite game, which really is the goal is not to win, but to keep playing. And the infinite game, Simon Sinek points out that running an organization is like a journey without a destination. And the book really distinguishes between the two games, the finite and the infinite. And in the finite games like football or chess, the rules are known and fixed. There's agreed upon objective, and the game ends often with a clear winner being awarded or declared. Infinite games, on the other side, can be played by known and unknown players. There's no rules, or there's no exact rules, and the length of play is infinite. So that objective really is, to keep playing the game. So I love this quote: when you embrace an infinite mindset, you'll eventually build a stronger, more innovative, more inspiring solutions with the resilience to thrive in an ever-changing world. And I have to say, right now is such a time, if your website is something like, oh, we're just gonna do some quick fixes, you really have to think bigger. So let's talk about what continuous website improvement looks like. So often when we adopt someone into our support program, which we do about 2/3 of our business into support, we work together to strategize, implement, and learn and iterate. And let's break this down. So if you come in as a client, or you're managing your own website, or you're looking at something for the first time, like Rich, I think like, hey, I've got this new site I gotta take a look at. We do this when we start with our clients and then annually. So what we wanna do are take analysis of what we've got going on. So first off is what we call a SWOT, which is a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we look at that through, you can look at that through the lens of your website. What are the strengths and weaknesses of my website? And what are the opportunities and threats, which are external forces on my website? Also, it's healthy to look, and we look at personas. Who is going to be using the site, and what do they want to do? And that's where we also look at user journeys. Can this type of user persona accomplish all the tasks that they are supposed to be able to accomplish? Auditing and understanding both the persona and the user journey will give you a landscape of often what's missing or what needs to be filled in. It's also really helpful to look at the competitive landscape. And not only if you think about it, like taxi cabs and those folks had a whole new set of competitors when Uber and Lyft and ride shares came out. So no longer was it taxi against taxi. So when you are working with your clients or your own site, you want to not only think of your direct competitors, but indirect competitors that could actually come in and disrupt your industry. And data and analytics, looking at your actual what you have. Often most of our clients, they don't actually have much set up to start. So even just taking a keen interest in this, you're going to figure out some stuff. And doing a site checkup. This is probably like all the nerdy stuff written in the most non-nerdy way, but really there's so many modules that are out there that you can leverage to check up on the site health. For example, you can use the hacked module, and you can run that, and it'll show all the differences. If there's any modules that have been modified, it'll show what those are. There's also SEO modules that you can run in and check to see. There's lots of ways that you can check up your site. We'll talk about a few of them. And I'm a big fan of setting SMART goals. So at the very beginning of the strategy phase, when you're looking at your site, you're saying, okay, what am I going to do with it? It's often helpful just to pick 1 or 2 really specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely goals. You can also build a website growth plan, like a growth plan. So during the strategy time, it's often like, okay, if one of my goals is to improve the user experience, I'm going to focus on my personas and the user journey and figuring out what's going on. You may identify that your information architecture needs to change, and you need to launch new navigation and new pathways. You could just do one kind of project just on information architecture. Or you could look at usability, or design, or accessibility, or performance, or content, or migration. I mean, a lot of people are in Drupal 7 right now, and they're thinking, oh, golly, I better get out of this. I got to get in Drupal 8 or 9. And it's a big lift. I think a lot of our clients come to us and are like, okay, we're going to do an upgrade. And I'm like, okay, so what's your budget? Well, we're thinking it's kind of like, you know, like that push of a button, and then, you know, maybe like 10, 15 hours. And I'm like, okay, you should sit down, right? Because a lot of our clients don't understand that there's actual full rewrite. So coming up with a small bite and say, hey, we understand you're on 7. Let's create a transition plan. Let's map all the modules. Let's map all the fields. Let's go through all your views. Let's look at all of your content. So that strategized plan you can even use. And when you're thinking about a new site, taking and figuring out a growth plan. Just as a heads up, we do these at work. You're welcome to ping me. We're doing 25% off of growth plans in May, which is just our little salesy thing that our marketer put in here for us, which is lovely. But if you do want to talk to me about that, do just meet with me and I'm happy to chat. But let's talk about once we have something figured out, like, oh, we've done a bit of strategy, what can we do to operationalize the plan? So first off, can you take some small bites for big wins? In order to keep the health of your website, doing the little things a lot is better than one huge release. Sometimes you're forced to do one huge release because you're doing some type of big theme or, you know, you're doing some big overhaul. But on the general, we try to take one small thing, really operationalize, achieve it, measure it, and then move on. Which is why I'm a big fan, if you're trying to manage the health of your website, is really thinking about less is more. You know, often people are doing these very large, what I call monolithic builds, where they're trying to take everything with them. You know, it's kind of like really strategic in some ways to KonMari your website before you migrate it. You know, like, you know, does this piece of content bring you joy? Does this PDF bring you joy? If you haven't seen Maria Kondo's like little wonderful way of purging things from your life, it's wonderful and terrifying because it actually like totally disrupts your life in a good way. But that's why you're going to look at your site. If you're going to do this huge migration, garbage in, garbage out. So really think about what you need, what's most effective. And if you're measuring along the way, you can then decide what's most effective to bring over. I'm also operationalizing this word because a couple of other agencies in the space use it. It's called minimum lovable product, which is let's just get away with the least that we can do that we love the most. Right? And then we always felt that minimum viable product was very unfun word, viable, like viable, that's not fun. But if we can get our clients and us to start thinking of what can we launch the least amount that we love the most, we can keep things moving fast. I've seen a lot of clients with Drupal 7 sites saying, oh, we're going to do our Drupal 8 rebuild. We're not going to touch our Drupal 7 site. And then for whatever reason, they didn't get their funding. And for whatever reason, they couldn't start. And 2 years later, they haven't touched their website and it looks awful. And it's so out of date. So there's a way to kind of figure out how to maximize what you've got and be nimble. So it's really important to stay nimble in all of this and know that sometimes you've got a big, huge game plan and then what? COVID hits. So you have to pivot. So figuring out how to implement the most important things is something that I'm sure you folks have been forced to do in your day jobs. It's like, okay, I got to get that alert up finally. Finally, I got to figure out that alert on my homepage so I can put a notice up, right? You know, it's kind of those things. So I find what's most important about keeping your site healthy is that first you got to kind of think about what you want to do in your strategy. Then you want to implement. Then you want to actually measure it. Because why would you make all these changes on your website if you don't know if they're working? We don't need extra work, right? We've got lots of work. So figuring out how to do that is really important. We find when you're working, you probably are not working in a vacuum. You probably have humans you need to talk to about things. We find that the best way to kind of get our clients thinking about things is they'll come to a quarterly meeting where we sit down with them and we talk about stuff. And we always come prepared with wins because clients are so focused in the day-to-day of what's happening. If you say, you know, how is everything? What is something that's happened on your site lately? They'll look at you like a deer in a headlight and be like, your team's nice? Like they're just so overwhelmed and bombarded with stuff. So your stakeholders, your VPs, your exec directors, your sales associates are probably the same way. So if you have some time to sit down and learn and improve, starting off with sharing wins and successes, getting them to think on the business, on the website, and frame their mindset in a positive mindset. Because you as the developer or the designer or the content manager or the human managing the humans, you've seen the successes. You've seen launching in record time. You've seen tooling stuff up so it's AA compliant. You've done this work, da, 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 da. So when you come into these meetings, just sitting down with your peoples and say like, hey, everybody, I'm going to start off. I'm going to share 2 wins that we've had with the website. Thought that was really helpful. Then we're going to move into some of our data and measuring. And it's amazing what just talking to humans about wins does for the energy, for the learnings, and for the opportunity for sharing. So big fan of sharing success. And I'm also big fans of regular reporting. If you can do this, weekly, monthly, rolling, whatever it is, it's helpful to see. So measuring what we call kind of leading indicators. For example, if you're on the first page of Google, that's a leading indicator. You're going to get lots of leads or more inquiries than if you're on page 10. So one of the things to measure is where's our search engine rankings for our key terms. That's valuable because if you start dropping, then you know you need to go and do some work. You can also measure things like with tools like Site Improve or different accessibility checkers. If you are managing a Drupal site, you're going to have content editors, and they're going to go in and potentially make a mess. They can make a mess very quickly by using WYSIWYG instead of the proper H tags and heading tags. They could go ahead and not put alt tag images, alts on tag images. So content editors, you want to train them, but it is something that you could report on. How many broken links do we have? And then monitor that and make sure you're doing well. I'm also a big fan of scheduling user testing. I always believe that, measure as much as you can, as often as you can, but really it's about measuring what matters and asking the question why. You don't want to go out to you and say, does my site look good? It's like, that's not a very effective question, but you can use tools like usertesting.com, or you can even use people in your community because your website is really, unless you're like literally making a website for, researchers in, wherever, most websites are really meant for humans, whether a B2B site or an education site. The reality is that you probably can get really good feedback from someone who just has never looked at your project before. So don't feel like you have to make user testing complicated and expensive. The important part is to test our assumptions. The one thing I do find is that when people are like, oh, I really want to get into my analytics, and it's like, well, what question do you want answered? Right? And that's often the guiding light, is what is the question you want answered? And that helps you then figure out what kind of data you need to gather. And often what we find with our clients, even our own Kanopi world, is, oh, I want to do this thing. And then it's like, oh, wait, the data's really crusty. Okay, let's put some markers in and then check back in 3 months, right? Because we have this little circle on our website for the Wall of Love, which is client testimonials. And I was like, should we get rid of that or keep it? Should we get rid of it or keep it? And we were like, oh, the analytics are not tracking that at all. Oh, well, we don't know then. So put the analytics on, we'll ask that question again in a month. So without actually asking the question and trying to figure out the data, there's no data. So this is a good thing, is you ask just like, who's clicking on that button? Is anybody clicking on that button? Then you can put a test on there, run it, see if it works, see if it doesn't, and then make some changes. I also want to mention is that when you're taking care of your website and you're planning for work on a monthly or quarterly or whatever cadence, we do our work usually in 2 to 3 week sprints, depending on the client and the velocity of work, but it's really important to actually put time aside to integrate feedback. So many of our busy marketers want to do this initiative and that initiative and this initiative and that initiative, and they don't even want to finish the first one sometimes by the time they start the 7th, right? So it's like helping them understand that out of a 12-week period over the course of a quarter, they actually have to save 1 sprint or 2 weeks for integrating feedback. Otherwise, they get, behind this bottleneck. So it's like helping manage just also the queue of getting stuff done on a regular basis, and also having a place that you can do a catch-all. So you can say, oh yeah, we got that, that's it, figuring out how to get that in and avoid a bunch of switching costs. Okay, so these are some must-dos. So if you're looking at your website right now and you say, oh gosh, like where do I even start? There's so many different things I can do. The first thing you can do is look at your content. Content. Like everybody says content is king, queen. Content rules the world, really, when it comes down to it. So assess refresh, redirect, or retire. And this is where you can then, if you actually go through and look at your site, not all content is going to serve this purpose forever. So you want to take stock of the underperforming content, functionality, repurpose it, or you can then retire or archive pages and redirect the old content to new content to keep your link equity. So we find that most of our clients, this is the hardest part, is the content. So it's usually one of the first things we also tackle. So when we come in, and they can come in, we can sit down and do a full inventory of where everything is. And like, if you think about it, you get your persona, they need to go through all these different mindsets until they actually become a customer or a student or whatever you want them to do. So you've got that awareness content that just has to get them aware of the problem or aware of you. Then you have the consideration content where they're considering you as a solution versus the others. And then you have that decision stage content when they're actually like, oh, I'm deciding to do this. So if you think about it, it's like, oh, I want to go to a university, right? So in the awareness phase, you know, I'm here in San Francisco, I start looking at universities, Bay Area. Okay, oh, look, University of San Francisco, California. Oh, I'm going to UC Davis. Oh, I'm going to UCLA. Look at all these UCs, right? Whatever the case may be. Then they go into consideration. Then they start putting the different schools side by side and start looking at like, okay, this one's close to my family. This one's far away from my family. This one, that, and they start comparing. And then decision stage content. Oh, I chose UCSF for their nursing program. Going there, what is it going to be like? What is the first day of class going to be like? Those three mindsets is the same person. If you don't have content for those three mindsets and only that first one or that last one, you're missing a ton of opportunities. So this is really kind of hard stuff because you have to like think about the user and get in their journey. But again, this is where you can iterate and test. Just talk to one of your current clients, find out the things they were asking, the questions. Think about, ask your salespeople, what kind of questions are they asked in sales? But that content stuff is something where, you know, you can really make huge, huge differences in your site without doing anything but update content. And I think I might have said this again, is really measure what matters. And this is where I highly recommend finding what matters most to certain people, but then what matters most to the organization. Because if you need funding or if you need something and you need the CFO to be on board, then find out what the CFO cares about. If the CFO cares about doubling donations and you can show that if we improve our user experience and that we can actually double donations, and you can say, hey, you know, currently a donation is worth $5,000. What if we did this work and we made it $10,000? You know, the CFO might open the purse strings a lot faster versus if you're like, oh, we wanted to get more page views, right? He doesn't care, she doesn't care about page views. So finding out what matters not only for your organization, but to the people that are going to help you move your project forward is really helpful for you to grease the wheels to get the money that you need to work on the website. Because sometimes in some organizations, they think because it's Drupal and it's open source that you build it and then it's free. Well, we know that oh so well that Drupal is like open source is free as in beer, right? So there is always a cost. And the fun thing about Drupal is that because it can do so many things, that you actually have the ability to take a site that you've built and make it better for 9 years. You know, you really can make it last. I also really highly encourage you to be user-focused, not trendy. How many people fight with their clients about carousels? Like every freaking day. Carousels, parallax, whatever. Sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, have you read anything about carousels? And it's often a battle we end up losing because some stakeholder is so hell-bent on this darn carousel that nobody, based on all of our analytics that people do not click through. People assume whatever is in your carousel is your mission statement. So it's like, I'm running an event for this. It's like, oh, they must do events for that. No, they're this thing. So that carousel can be very misleading, but everybody wants one. So data, and no, sometimes you'll win and sometimes you will lose. And sometimes just putting the carousel down on the page, you'll still lose, but you kind of win because it's not front and center. But it's like one of those things, like, does it enhance the user experience or is it just flashy? Because another thing that's an awesome thing about Drupal is that it should be for the people. It's a powerful CMS. You get your content management system. As a user, you 100% should feel like you can upload a picture or create a layout or change a hero image or, you know, do that kind of stuff. I've seen sites that look beautiful the day they're launched. 2 years later, they look like trash because the poor user has never really been given the right tools to manage their Drupal site. All of them are big splashy images, so they don't know Photoshop. How are they gonna cut anything? So their photos are all like weird looking and they weren't, so there's ways that if you make it user focused, it will be built to last. If you give a standard image size, that helps the content manager not have to use Photoshop to make a beautiful website. That's beautiful. And be accessible. This is not an option. You don't have to be AAA. You can still be beautiful and AAA. There's lots of beauty that comes in accessibility, but AA is really, really easy to achieve. And there's so many things that your content people need to be a part of this solution. So figuring out accessibility, not just the technical accessibility, but from the content's perspective, is really important to maintain the health of your site. And be serious about security. It's wild how many people actually do not do their core updates when they come out. And to me, that would give me like a heart attack because I have personally been hacked on Twitter and my email's been stolen. And if you ever get an email from me about Viagra, it's not me emailing you. I was hacked. So I feel like why, and that's before now I'm two-factor everything. I two-factor everything, right? I'm just paranoid because I got hacked. But it's one of those things that your Drupal security team is there for you. When they give you an update, you do the update. All you got to do is press the buttons, right? You don't have to do the hard work of actually patching and building all the security stuff. All that stuff is done by really smart people who care a lot about Drupal. So it's just important that you do your updates pretty much as soon as they come out, especially anything critical security. You also want to host with a reputable provider, okay? You just want to make sure that you don't leave your doors and unlock downtown San Francisco. You might come the next morning and have a friend living in your car, right? That happens. So make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows in terms of doing your module and updates. You can leave some of your contributed module updates, maybe once a month, once a quarter, but I would never do them any longer than once a quarter. And always use a dev test live type of staging environment, and I'm sure you all know that. So, listening to your users. Another thing that I can't stress enough, that even talking to your clients about what they know helps you move with their needs. So even understanding your CFO's needs, right? Or your marketer that's always down your neck. Like, what can you do to help your internal stakeholders as well as your audiences? If you're trying to figure out like what's really broken from the user flows, if you're thinking, yeah, I should make my user persona and figure out all the steps they're going to go through and figure out all the gaps, one of the great places to actually speak to is customer service reps. Who's ever answering the phone and dealing with the general public have got a wealth of information of what they do not like talking about 17 times a day. They will tell you all the things that need to go on the website because they're like, oh yeah, they call about this, they call about that, they call about this. You can get a lot of information from people who are on the front lines. Okay, so having a bad website is just not an option. So how do you actually know what to do and when? So these are some signals. And I don't think any of us want to hear or use the word pivot after 2020. But we probably have somewhat pivoted in some way, shape, or fashion. So when we look at, is that a signal we need to do something with our website? Probably, right? Or has the market evolved? Are there new services and products out there? Are there new markets? Is there a new strategy you're out launching? If you think about your site and say, yeah, we actually are offering these new products and they're not really on our website. I mean, I'm sure if you work at an agency, you know that the cobbler's kids have no shoes. But there is some of this fun stuff is, your industry has probably evolved. I mean, if you're working in higher ed right now, this whole teaching economy is going to blow up in a really good way. We're revolutionizing the way we teach and the way we learn and the way we work. It's stressful and intense right now, but there's going to be some beautiful silver linings. So how does your website need to pivot to match that? And are they actually able to find what they're looking for? There's tools out there. There's one of them called like Hotjar, for example, which is a great way to look at heat maps. And it also allows you to put a little snippet of JavaScript on your site and ask like a 1-sentence question, like, what did you come here for today? That's valuable information. When we were working with the Parks Conservancy, we had the luxury of doing quite a bit of research. We talked to, you know, I don't know, 20 stakeholders, we did focus groups, we talked to users, we did surveys, like we did lots of different data points. And the one data point that we used was a little pop-up questionnaire that would come up on the site as people had the intent to exit. So as they were about to X off, a little thing came up and said, hey, what did you come here for today? Or did you find what you were looking for? And running that survey over 3 weeks, we found that over 50% of the daily traffic that comes to the parks website is looking for what's happening today in the parks. Not a single stakeholder, not a single user. They all said come for events, come for volunteer initiatives, but there wasn't really an understanding from the stakeholders that most of their traffic on a day-to-day is looking for what's happening today. So within that, we created a pathway right there that allowed people to find out what's happening today before getting to anywhere else. And then it allowed them to get, you know, sucked into the content. But without that knowledge, we would have been missing that pathway for 50% of those users. And it was just a little tiny question we asked. So I'd encourage you to check out Hotjar. There's a free version. It's really easy to use. And you can start polling people on your site like tonight and say like, you know, did you find what you were looking for? Beautiful. I will warn you that Hotjar is not AA compliant though. So Hotjar is very annoying about that. So that was a lesson learned as well. But another signal, right, is has your users' needs changed? You know, thinking about this, and again, this is kind of thinking back to, you know, for all of our virtual events, okay? We know that with virtual conferences, the highest attended session is the first one. So how can you engage? How do you entertain? How do you entice them to stay for the third or the fourth or the fifth? How do you get them to come to different events? So that's where, you know, our user needs as visitors to all these camps and stuff, curiosities will be with me. I'll be like, how did you find it? What did you learn? Did you stay the whole time? Because our needs have changed, you know? And is your content effectively presented? Does it say what you want it to say? Content, content, content. You could spend all of your time on content. That's why we have a content management system. You don't have to do that. Your peoples do if you're a developer. But it's one of those things that, like, you know, just effectively displaying the content so it's digestible. Another signal that you can look for is your conversion rates, right? So right now, it's like we're all looking, all of us, like, okay, who's filling out our contact form? Okay, who's contacting us? Like, and we're measuring right now is the number of leads coming in less than it was last year, right? Is that, you know, are the people that are visiting our blogs, are they staying on the same, you know, is the conversion rate declining or is it increasing? And this is a signal that if all of a sudden you drop in SEO or you drop in, you know, where you are, that's going to be a signal you need to do something with your website. If you don't do anything with your website, essentially if you are not proactively promoting and managing and editing and changing your website, your rankings will decline. They just will. Google's smarter than you. Google's smarter than all of us. But another good thing is, or interesting way to look is, what about the competitors? One way that we've been helping our clients is looking at what their competitors are doing and coming back to them to say, hey, you know, these are the things we want us to keep with them and help them. You know, are there new competitors that are reaching the market? You know, and is your site fast enough? It's disgusting how much performance can ruin your life. Like, it can ruin your life, people. If you don't have a fast enough site, like, no one's coming to it. It's not getting indexed. And it's like something scary that, like, it was like 53% will abandon your site if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. And 75% will never come back if it took more than 4 seconds. We got one shot. And if your site doesn't load fast, you're hooked. So that is just like the lowest hanging fruit. You can go to Google Page Speed, put your URL in there. It's going to pop out a report that's both technical and non-technical, but mostly technical. Stuff for you folks to go and fix. So if you need work, go run performance audits on all your client site, ping them, and I bet you could say, hey, I can make your go fast. So Awesome. Okay, so those trends, right? Does your site overuse parallax? Do we have too many carousels? You know, like what is going on there? So again, make it for the user. And sometimes, again, running user testing helps the other stakeholders see what is not important. So like, I love my higher ed peeps, love them to bits, but there's always some person who wants their face on the homepage. And they want it big, and they want it in the center, and they want it all about them. And you're like, Mr. Dean, Mrs. Dean, this is fantastic. You have a fantastic hair. But it's like, nobody actually cares in the sweetest way. And the best way to kind of identify that is with testing. To say, hey, folks, you know, we worked in the Department of Urology. There's a certain gentleman that wanted his face on the homepage. We did a bunch of testing. We did a bunch of surveying. Everybody was actually coming for patient care. Right? They were curious who the doctors were, but not on their first visit. On their first visit, they were coming for that awareness content is I'm in patient care, I need this. Oh, yes, I've decided to work with UCSF Department of Urology. Decision page content, yes, I care about who my doctor is. When they're looking for what they're gonna do, they don't care about who their doctor is yet. So it's, again, one of those things is understanding that. And does it look great on mobile? I mean, one of the things is like, a lot of people think you can just stack a website, but sadly, that's not really user-friendly. You can't just like have a kitchen and then stack it, and it's not gonna work the same. That's a really bad analogy. But the point is like, you wanna have a conscious thought experience around what your users wanna do with their mobile experience. It may be very limited to what they wanna do on the desktop, and that's okay. I also find it very interesting is some of our clients are like B2B software as a service clients, and they're like mobile first, oh, I gotta be mobile, it's gotta be mobile this, oh, I wanna do this. And we look at their analytics and they're like 90% desktop. Their users are all B2B marketers that are sitting at their desktop. They're not on their phone looking at their stuff. No. What they're doing is they're listening to that person's podcast on their phone though. Okay? That's a whole like, oh, they're not looking at our website on the phone, they're doing all that, but I want to influence them through the podcast and maybe do some couple of key landing pages. So if they click on the link from our podcast and they go to our website, it looks great on mobile for that experience. But maybe, you know, like, so it's about really understanding that and understanding stacking it does not make it usable. So, you know, in a way, like really consciously think and ask. And peoples, your site should be easy to use and edit. We are in Drupal. It is a blissful thing. If you have enjoyed the Drupal caravan from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to now it'll be 9 like I have, I feel like I am riding in a Tesla compared to the jalopy we had in Drupal 4X, whatever it was, that I was like, why is this thing so awful? I've always been client side, never a developer. So I've always been very mad at Drupal's user interface. So when actually I got to like ride in my Tesla Drupal 8, I was like, ah! As a content power editor, very, very, very happy to see all of the things that are so possible with Drupal now. So if your site is Drupal 7 or 8 is hard to manage, it's likely fixable. You can fix it. So, okay. Small bites for big wins. Just some low-hanging fruit. We covered a lot tonight. Navigation, real easy way. Look at who clicks on what. Remove the links that people click on. Don't click on. Pardon me. Simple changes. Run it through an accessibility checker. Are your colors AA compliant? Do you have the right color contrast? If you don't, that's something you can tweak right away in your color palette, in your style guide. You can go and change some of these basic things. You can also reimagine content. Shocker, content. But you could write new content. You could add images. You could do video. There's so much fun stuff. You could do Giphies. Those things are so fun. I've seen some really cool like higher ed type experiences where they've had the student experience and it's like a little Giphy. It's a little person just kind of like moving and like, it's super engaging, super low tax, super easy and affordable to do. You can make a Giphy at home. So there's fun stuff you can do with content that creates a more engaging site. Or you can do focused design. Maybe say, I'm gonna just do this. And if you are in that weird space where you have a Drupal 7 site and you're like, I wanna be in Drupal 8, but I don't quite have enough time, money, energy to get there, you could do a little bit of a hybrid. You know, we have one client that has a Drupal 7 site. He's terrified of the actual migration to 8. So we're building a new thing in 8 and pulling it in via an API. So we have this like quote roller. I don't know what it is. Like, essentially the client, they do labels, and they had too many unqualified people coming to their website and asking for quotes. So they wanted to build a thing for the internet that the internet could help qualify. They could put in their dimensions of whatever, you know, label they want, label maker, pop it in, they would give them a basic quote. If it was qualified, then it would funnel off to a salesperson, and if it wasn't, then it would be gone. And that was a huge business development effort for them. So it was really important to build that in Drupal 8 and then feed it all in via an API. So there's ways that you can do some really cool tech stuff. And yes, it's kind of weird to have a Drupal 7 and Drupal 8 site, but hey, you know what? Your end user doesn't know. They don't really know, and they don't really care. So don't feel stressed out if you are in 7. You do and you can make your site last for a really long time. And if you're in 8, the world is your oyster. You never have to rebuild again. So yay for Drupal to committing to backwards compatibility, because we've needed that for a long time. So I'm stoked. A couple real world examples. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We'll quit so we can talk. This site is 9 years old. Okay, it's super old. It's Drupal 7. We migrated 450 pieces of content, and you can check it out. We just recently did a homepage refresh. But these folks here, a lot of work, just said, oops, taking care of the life cycle. We usually have around a 200% increase in newsletter signups year over year. The first year we launched in 2012, we had like 3,000, 4,000 increase, but it's been a steady increase over the years. LC, learning countries for networks and transitions. We built an MLP, you know, that minimum lovable product. It was like, throw the spaghetti against the wall, does it stick? Hey, it sticks. So after that, then we went ahead and continued to iterate on their homepage and on their forums. And then that we were able to measure that and show that we had a 252% increase in news site users and 177% increase in forum engagement. So this is really important, because then they have to go back to their peoples to say, hey, we did our thing, we get to have more money, they get to do their stuff. So it's been great working with some of these clients. CRDF Global is another client where they came to me and said, I have $25,000, I want to update my Drupal 7 site to Drupal 8. And I went, oh gosh, we're gonna need like triple or quadruple that much. And they went, what? I said, well, what if we just skin it and make it last, and then go get real money in like 3 or 4 years? They're like, yes, let's do that. So what we did is we were able to retune the whole brand, make sure it's AA compliant, make sure it was content editable, and they're off to the races for another few years, and we're properly planning the Drupal 8 migration. So it's not a surprise for them. Because I bet you folks have found that as well. Like some clients are just like, what? So, but yeah, great way we measured that with key capability pages. Here's some resources. So I'll be posting this deck, afterwards, but there's different ways you can check accessibility really easily. There's a site improve Chrome plugin. There's also this really cool CSS design checker that my team really loves, because it actually helps you learn about your CSS at scale, I guess. So, oops, I keep clicking there. And then this page speed, right? You can actually see a lot. All right, so feel free to connect with me. Do mention where you came from, though, and this is my lovely team. We'd be happy to help you, tell your friends about us, and we are hiring if you are looking for a Drupal technical lead. If you know someone in your world that's looking for a job, let us know. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you. We did it. I talked for 40 minutes straight. Any questions, comments, ideas, thoughts?